Hello everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar on advanced hygiene programs for peak poultry production, organized by Poultry World in exclusive collaboration with CID LINES and Ecolab Company. My name is Lisa Bruggeling, I'm an editor for Poultry World, and I'll be your host for the coming 60 minutes. And luckily for me, I won't be alone, because I'm joined today by two expert speakers who between them have a wealth of knowledge of the poultry sector. And they are Anna Mansilla, Global Segment Marketing Manager Swine and Poultry at CID LINES and Ecolab Company, and Maarten de Gussum, Founder and Poultry Consultant at Degudap. Maarten and Anna, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. And, of course, for agreeing to talk about such an important topic. Because, unfortunately, modern poultry farming faces an ever-growing list of challenges, not in the least from pathogens such as Salmonella. Traditional reactive approaches adopted by poultry farmers unfortunately are no longer enough. And that's why you will be talking about proactive data-driven hygiene strategies to protect farmers' flocks. Now, before I give the floor to our first speaker, I would like to address some practicalities. This is a live webinar, and that means we very much like to hear from you back home, the office or the farm. And that's why we created the possibility to ask questions to Maarten and Anna. If you hover the mouse over the screen, an orange button will appear in the right bottom corner, and you can use that to ask them your questions. We've got 60 minutes, which is quite a lot. I hope also we will be able to answer as many questions as we possibly can. But if yours is not among them, never worry, because we strive to answer all unanswered questions through email. That said, I would now like to give the floor to our first speaker, Maarten. Maarten, you will be talking about how to turn biosecurity concepts into return on investment, unique insights from the field. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for this nice introduction. And I would like to start with the first slide. I am a lot of the attendees today talks, and they will understand and acknowledge that I like to be with my 2 feet in the ground. Now, when I had a couple of months ago, I think it's already 1 year, Anna, if I now rewind, time flies. If I think back at the discussion that we had about hygiene and biosecurity programs, one of the first discussions that I had, very frankly spoken, is it's nice to have a premium type of disinfection program, hygiene and biosecurity disinfection program. But if I have to use this with my customers as a poultry veterinarian, the first question that I will get back from my customers is, what will be the return on investment that this will generate? And I start reflecting on this topic a lot, because there's 2 ways to look into hygiene disinfection. And we started discussing, Anna, on mounting a field trial. This became like a mission for me to answer one of the most difficult questions I see today in the poultry industry. It is, what is the return on investment of a hygiene program, not just in, let's say, a situation where we have endemic problems with Newcastle disease or with avian influenza, where it's obvious that an investment in biosecurity, in hygiene programs, is having a certain high return investment, right? But the question that we had is, what would disinfection programs do in a environment where we have a rather low challenge situation? And actually, I checked literature at that moment also, and I can't find any data. So if I have customers asking me, I say something 1 cent per animal placed, what will be the return on investment for that? I can't answer it. And that is, of course, an interesting starting point to start a trial. So I will explain a bit in this presentation about what does return on investment mean. And also, I'm very happy and proud also that we are able to share today some data, really very interesting data that explain in our situation, in our trial that we did together with CID LINES, with the Avi Prime program that they designed. I will talk about it later. that we are able to calculate the return on investments. All right. So next slide, please. So if we, as an introduction, first talk about biosecurity concepts, we are a little bit vague in that approach. Yeah? But we all know that biosecurity in the first place is not to fix problems. Vets like to fix problems. We like to put antibiotics when essential. We like to use also keeping disease outside by using vaccines. But yes, we also like to talk a lot about biosecurity. But what I very often I see is that my colleagues very often have a vague approach into biosecurity. Sometimes we have difficulties to come into a concrete setting, like a concrete advice. What are we going to do now in terms of a biosecurity plan? And that is what where we found each other with Ecolab CID Lines, where we found each other, where they were proposing to us a certain specific Avi Prime program, and we evaluated this in real life conditions. My first comment is always yes. Why should I follow the Avi Prime program? Why not half of the Avi Prime program? Because if you go for a biosecurity and hygiene program, what you're sure of is that you spend money. You know, you will buy the products, you will buy labor, you will apply it, so you're sure of your investment costs. So that is where we always, as a vet, we start with. We start with a good plan, but very often we rightfully get the answer from the farmers and from the integrations. It will go with the costs, and where should we put our costs? And in food industry, if we talk about a vaccine program, we talk about an additive program, we are very much used to always propose something with a calculated estimation of the return on investments. Unfortunately, if you look at hygiene programs, we don't have the tradition, and our suppliers that sell this disinfectants, they don't have the tradition to really calculate the return on investment. And I think that is really a pity. And if you look at return on investment, like for any other tool that we use, an additive or a vaccine, we always look at the first place at, can this solution bring better production results, performance in terms of feed conversion ratio, feed intake, body weight gain. Sometimes more difficult to measure things like uniformity, but easy to calculate things like lower mortality. We also always try to look at the impact that any diagnostic preventive plan has on antimicrobial use, less cost for antimicrobial, but also we have a less impact on society if we have lower resistance issues. Next slide, please. So if you talk about biosecurity specifically, if you talk about vaccines, let's start maybe talking about vaccines. With vaccines, most people will say, I know my investment cost and I know I will prevent this amount of damage. Okay. With biosecurity, that is really a lack. There's really a lack. There's really a black hole in terms of understanding the opportunity with biosecurity concepts. Most people would not see a good ROI. They would say, look, a disinfection program is like an insurance. You know, you pay it and you hope that it will avoid a calamity, a disaster, right? So if you drive the car, we are even forced to buy an insurance. We don't like to pay for it because it's an expense that we cannot recover. But if, of course, we would have an accident, that we would be very happy that we have insurance because our car will be paid back, right? That is how we think in the poultry and on the swine industry, we think about biosecurity. I don't really agree with that. Of course, it is an insurance. And if you have a disaster, you can prevent a disaster. You have a very high infection pressure in case of avian influenza endemic situation or Newcastle disease situation. I agree that you can see it as an insurance. But I, as a poultry veterinarian, I really would like to know what is my return on investment. I want to calculate something. That is the starting point of this trial. Food safety concerns and imposed regulations can be an inspiration. We know also the impact of animal health on animal welfare. Not only the sick animals are dangerous, but for sure, subclinical infections are the biggest threats. And that is where, in the subclinical diseases, I want to understand, without having a calamity, without having a disaster, what will be the impact of this infection on my performance. Okay. And when we think about subclinical diseases, where in this low mortality setting, where we can expect an impact, the common subclinical diseases that we can think of are, for instance, coccidiosis, are Salmonella, are Mycoplasma, but also viral diseases like infectious bronchitis, adeno, and reo. Next slide. If you look at hygiene programs and biosecurity, I just want to recall a bit theoretically that we have two ways of looking into hygiene programs. One is external biosecurity. We want to avoid an entering of the farm of certain pathogens. And also, if we look at concepts of internal biosecurity, we want to avoid pathogens spreading from one bird to the other, or from one house to the other, or from, of course, if we talk about Salmonella, where Anna will talk about later, we also want to avoid transmission from other animals or humans on the farm to our chickens. Next slide. So if you look at the return on investment, you have to remember that we are looking at a situation before we implement a certain new program. It could be a disinfection program. It could be a new vaccine. It could be a new feed additive. It could be anything what you do on the left side. We compare the situation with what we see as a cost on the right side. And yellow, you can see the additional costs. But there you want to understand also in situation B, you want to see, does this bring me back money or not? And that is something for any decision that you take on vaccines, additive, or disinfectants, you should try to make that estimation. And what do you want to compare? You have a higher cost, you want to have a higher return. If you have in the yellow, you have €1 spent and you just earn €1 back, that is typically what you expect from or less. That's typically what you expect from an insurance, right? You just do this investment because you hope, in the case of a disaster, that you will have a certain protection. If you talk about an investment, we want to have, if we invest €1 in yellow, we want to have at least more than €1 return on investment, right? So we want to earn more than €1 back. In my experience, if I see how sure you are that you will make the investment back, I like typically to have €3 back for €1 investment. Then I think like I'm really making a good investment. I invest €1, I get 3 back. If it's lower, I will doubt a little bit. If it's more than 3, I will have no doubts. I will invest with this vaccine, with this additive, with this disinfection program. I will not hesitate. I will make that investment, and I will be very happy with that return. Next slide. So when we look at ROI calculations, return of investment calculations, and we look at broiler production, what is the main driver that we should focus on? It's in fact feed conversion ratio. 70 to 80% of the cost that we have is in feed intake. The better we have the feed conversion ratio, the more easy it gets, the easier it gets to have a good return on investment. The growth rate and the feed conversion ratio are very much linked to each other, because if you have a faster growth rate, you can slaughter the birds earlier and you will have less feed used for maintenance. Automatically, your feed conversion ratio will be lower. If we talk about biosecurity, we talk about hygiene, we try also to have an impact on mortality. And this is an interesting one, because if you have already a low mortality, how much do you think you can still save on mortality? And this was one of the issues that I had with the discussion with CID Lines, like what kind of disinfection program should we implement? If I have a 2% mortality rate, should I invest more in disinfection or not? To be honest, before I did this trial, I was thinking probably yes, but how to prove that? If you have a 40% mortality rate, nobody will even ask you, please make the calculation, right? They will just say, look, the opportunity that we see in front of us is so huge that we don't bother even making the calculation. If you can bring it back from 40% to 35%, we have a return on investment that is more than 10. But if you have only 2%, you cannot go to -2, right? So you can go to -3. So you cannot gain 5% of mortality. How will we be able to earn back our money of investing in this biosecurity program? So that is where it's a very interesting parameter to consider if you talk about low infection pressure environments. Yeah, meat yield, antibiotic use, disease costs, all these are sometimes difficult to calculate. We didn't focus on this in this trial on this aspect, but this could be something, if you have the good data, that you could also consider. Now, this is your benefits. On your cost side, your additive, your implementation cost, this means your disinfectant, that is more costly or less costly, but also the way that you apply labor to it, that is part of your cost, right? And then everything which is on the right side there that you can see are strategic values, intangible benefits. They're all, for me, nice to have. Okay, I don't mind to put them there. But for me, ideally, I earn back my investment with the hard parameters that I see on the left side, which are feed conversion ratio, mortality, and that growth rate. Okay, next slide. So how do you do that? So I did it now in this trial, but how will you do that at home? And when you're back at home, it's not so difficult. Just list all direct and indirect costs related to biosecurity. Your hygiene products, obviously, the investment of the equipment, your staff training, the labor for applying, okay? And then try to measure the benefits. How can you do that? Well, it's not so hard. It's not so hard in theory. In practice, sometimes it's hard to collect the data and to have the good quality of the data. But actually, you implement a certain program and you measure before or after, you measure the performance. Okay? I already hear you thinking, yes, but my genetics might be a bit different. My season is a bit different. My feed quality could be a little bit different because you have raw materials coming in all the time, which are different. So it's maybe not very ideal. I agree with you. That is why in this trial, we compared same farm with different houses at the same moment, with the same farmer, the same feed, the same vaccination program, everything the same, except one difference where one house we use as a control house, the program that the farmers are using before, and then we also implemented the Avi Prime disinfection program in parallel. So we did it in a direct comparison. And then, if you want to have some statistical analysis done, you need repetitions. So this is what we did. We took 8 farms. Today, I will be able to share with you 4 farms with completed data, where we made the preliminary analysis, and we compared the results in performance one by one, farm by farm. So control versus Avi Prime. And then we compared the additional costs that the Avi Prime program was representing compared to the program that these farmers were using already. And then we compared the benefits with the costs. Okay? All right, so next slide. So the setting of the trial was Belgium. And to be honest, in Belgium, we can say we have an easy life. We have good beer, we have good chocolate. Today, we have nice weather. Usually, we don't have nice weather, but today we have nice weather. But mainly, if you're in poultry production, we have an easy life. We have a low challenge situation. We, from time to time, have some AI scares from wild birds. But for bird production, that's typically not so important. And I can tell you that we selected a group of farms. You can see here the country map. Where we didn't have any issues, okay? Well, we always have issues, but no high mortality, no high feed conversion ratio. These are farms where, let's say, we are fine-tuning the situation. I'm sure that 90% of the farmers worldwide would immediately like to swap with these farmers that are on these farms, because they have mortality rates around 2%. They have very high EPAFs. They have very low feed conversion ratios, okay? So we compared in these farms houses with control disinfection program and also Avi Prime program. And we checked this for 3 cycles consecutive. Okay, next slide. The cleaning and disinfection program that we had was a traditional program, which were different programs. And then we always compared with the Avi Prime program, where we have a general recommendation for the use of the products. I think Anna can talk more about this, but we have 0.25 liters per solution per square meter, where we do a cleaning of the barn with a Kinosan 1.5% and disinfection of the barn with 0.5%. And then we do also that drinking water acidification with CID 2000, 2%. By the way, all the farms also had an alternative drinking water acidification program. Okay, and then also we added a food bath procedure by putting Kickstart 2% in the food baths for additional disinfection. Next slide. And then we measured the different cycles. So we did, on this moment, we have the results of 4 farms. So that's 8 houses, where we compared 4 control houses with 4 Avi Prime houses. On average, around 35,000 birds per cycle. And the length of the cycle was 41 days. And you can see here, this is extremely interesting. If you look at the mortality rate, you can just click because then the highlighted parts of the slide will pop up. Thank you. You will see that before applying the Avi Prime, we had a very low 2.43% mortality rate, where I think most farmers would tell me, you can't improve that anymore, right? Okay, and that is the hypothesis that we had. Could we, by applying an Avi Prime program, could we still improve that already very low mortality? In fact, the answer was yes. Okay, so we were able to reduce it to 1.95% mortality. The p-value of this number is 0.06. Okay, we know it's still not a huge trial, but the p-value 0.06 for me as a clinician, this is statistically significant. Okay, it's only 4 farms having that kind of a reduction of mortality is enormous. Although the absolute numbers are low, it is an enormous impact on the mortality rate. You can, by the way, for the people that are not living in this paradise with low mortality, you can imagine what this would mean if you have a high mortality rate. Okay. If you then look at the feed conversion ratio, we also saw a reduction from 1.53 to 1.529. You would say this is not a lot of reduction, but remember that also the birds were heavier. So this is the not corrected feed conversion ratio. So if you would correct it, you would see more than 2 points feed conversion ratio improvement. You can click again on the slide. Thank you. And you can see that indeed, even with the higher weight, so more feed used for maintenance, we still have, you can click, also we have a lower feed conversion ratio. If you see this data, you already know the test rounds or the test houses will have a better performance compared to the control ones, right? You all agree you have a lower mortality, so you have more birds that will generate meat that will be sold into the slaughterhouse. We have a higher end weight per animal that survived. So again, we have more meat to be sold, and we have less feed used. Although the birds are heavier, then you know, okay, this is going to be a positive outcome in terms of economics. The question now will be, of course, will this compensate for the additional investment that you did, right? Because on the return on investment side, we have the investment on one side, we have the return on the other side. This is the return side. Okay, next slide. So when I compile a bit the results here, so we have a 0.48% mortality. Yeah, okay, on 2.5%, that's significant. That's a 20% lower mortality rate. So we have 4,800 birds slaughtered per million birds. We extrapolate to 1 million birds to have an easy calculation. So we have more birds slaughtered. We also have a little bit lower feed conversion ratio, but remember, this is actual feed conversion ratio. If you would go to corrected one, you have more than 2 points feed conversion ratio improvement, and we have about 20 grams better end body weight control versus the Avi Prime cycles or farms or houses. The parameters used here for the hypothetical scenario here are indeed corrected for the feed conversion ratio there. So you see this improvement. Okay, next slide. The additional investment. We did have an investment of 1.1 cents for the traditional program. This is other products. Again, it's different products that were used. Let's say not a prime program, but a standard legally allowed program allowed for Belgian conditions, right? And the program that we have with Avi Prime is an estimate. It could be a little bit different depending on the country that you live, because the prices could be a little bit different in terms of transport and so on. But here we had a 1.7 cents euro per bird for the whole Avi Prime program per cycle. Okay, so this means that if I compare the expense per 1 million birds, I have 17,000 euros spent. But my other program also cost 11,000. So we have an additional expense of 6,000 euros per million birds. Okay. Again, you can wonder, why would you do that if you only have a 2.45% mortality and you have this fantastic good feed conversion ratios that are already very low? Why would you do that? Why would you expend 6,000 euros? You have a legal obligation to do a minimum disinfection program. And so why would you even expend more than this? Okay, good question. So if you look at the return investment, there is an important note to make. Because more birds are surviving, the birds are healthier. That was our hypothesis, but we could prove it here. The feed consumption was higher. Yeah, logically, the birds also weigh heavier. So they consume more feed and also take into account that additional cost. So I had this additional cost of 6,000 euros for the additional investment in disinfectants from the Avi Prime program compared to the standard program, plus the 6,300 euros additional cost because the birds ate more, right? I'm not distracting the birds that were bought as day-old chick that died. I didn't distract it. I didn't want to give too much advantage to the Avi Prime program. I could have done that, but I didn't do it. Okay. So if I look at the return now, okay, I have more meat sold. I have about 31,000 kilograms of meat more produced for this 1 million birds placed. The meat price here, on this moment, I took 1.3 euros per kilogram. And again, in your situation, it could be 1.5. It could be 1 kilogram. This is the actual price for Belgian situation is 1.3 euros per kilogram live weight. So that means that we have a 41,139 euros more turnover. If I then take off this 12,000 euros, I have a profit of 28,000 euros, 844 euros more profit with 1 million birds placed, with only one difference. Instead of using a standard disinfection program, I just used the Avi Prime program. This is the only difference between the two houses, Control and Avi Prime. Okay, so if I then calculate my return on investment, I gain 28,000 euros with the same work, the same feed, the same amount of chicks, and I paid additional costs of 6,000 euros for this Avi Prime. I will have a return on investment of 4.81. Remember what I said in my introduction? I typically like to aim for a return on investment of minimum 3. Okay, so here I was quite impressed by having an extremely good result with 4.81. Would I still recommend the Avi Prime product approach if I would have a ROI less than 3? I would leave the decision with the farmer. If it's more than 3, I recommend it. If it's less than 3, I don't know in your situation if you would have the same results. I cannot predict that. If it's more than 3, I would say, look, I would not let go the opportunity if you have such a high opportunity. I do the same when I talk about vaccines, about additives. If it's more than 3, I highly recommend it. Next slide, please. So the key takeaways here are quite interesting because if you talk about biosecurity, hygiene programs, I see a lot of people starting to get bored even before the discussion is starting because we know all the cliches. We know all the checklists. We know all the hypotheses where people say you should do this because we think it will, you know, people talk a lot in hypothesis when we talk about biosecurity. Why? They have the mindset of an insurance. That's exactly what your car insurer would tell you. What if somebody crashes your car? You are driving on the car and there's a truck coming and it crashes you. What then? What will you do? Okay, and that is why a lot of people they don't like the costs that are linked with disinfection biosecurity because they say, yeah, it's an insurance. Okay, if I have a disaster, I will be happy that I had this investment. But if I don't have a disaster, I just spoiled some money for nothing, right? Well, what is unique about this trial, and again, if people would have data that are similar to this data, please send them to me so I can integrate it in my presentation on how to look at biosecurity and hygiene programs. But I think this is a really unique trial because I don't think I have seen before a calculated impact of a disinfection program on feed conversion ratio, body weight gain, on mortality, and linked with that also a financial calculation. So although hygiene programs might be seen as an insurance for disaster, in this case, it's not an insurance because it's an investment that brings back money, even in low risk situation, right? So one of the doubts that I had is with this answered. Even when infection pressure is low, it is proven now that in the situation that we have here in Belgium, with a 2.5% mortality rate, even with a 2.5% mortality rate, even with a low feed conversion ratio of about 1.5 something, we can still have a very good return on investment, which is more, in this case, more than 4.8. Okay, so this is not an insurance; it is an investment that brings back money to the farmer or to the integration. Remember, this is my example. This is my calculation. Of course, you have to repeat this in your conditions, or you might repeat your conditions. It can be a source of inspiration to see if you can confirm this or not. Remember, ROI calculations should be dynamic, not static. Review it regularly because the parameters that I'm using, the cost of my feed, which I used 300 euros per ton of feed, I used a 1.3 euros per kilogram of meat. It could change. It could be that all of a sudden the feed becomes very cheap. It could be that you don't have that return on investment anymore, right? Because we have an effect on feed conversion ratio. Yeah, if the feed becomes cheaper, it could be that the investment of the additional program is not worth it anymore. Okay, the same with the meat price. If the meat price would drop dramatically, it could be that my return on investment is dropping, maybe to below 1. But I can tell you with this kind of numbers, it's very hard to have a return on investment that drops below 1, because we know that these main drivers, feed conversion ratio and the selling price of the meat and the feed price, are extremely important. If this example of a trial shows one thing, is that even in low infection pressure conditions, a good or a better or a prime disinfection program like Avi Prime is bringing a return on investment which is largely positive. Okay, and with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Maarten, thank you very much for your presentation. I was speechless, of course, because the audience didn't hear me, but also figuratively speaking, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to hear you speaking. Of course, there were some questions coming in. And first of all, you said it so very aptly, Belgium is a low mortality paradise, and even in Belgium it works. Are there any more trials maybe in the planning, in the works? Because, well, Belgium is maybe a paradise and maybe other countries are as well, but I can imagine a lot of countries aren't. So is there anything you can say about trials in those countries, or maybe how the program would work there?
Yeah, look. I do a lot of not trials. I'm, of course, if anybody of the audience want to run such a trial, they want to have some guidance, please contact me on my email address. You will find me, I'm sure, and I'm happy to help them to show how this was built. Okay, so I can for sure I can help you with doing it in your conditions. Okay, but in general, what you have to remember is that if it works in a low challenge condition, the return on investment is going to be higher in higher infection pressure. Okay, so you can take that as a take home message. Whatever you saw here, it's going to be the minimum effect that you can expect as like a baseline effect that you would expect in any farm environment. But the more challenge you have, the more will be the return on investment.
The better it is. Yeah, logically.
Yes.
Another person wants to know, during the Avi Prime program, was the disinfection done 2 times, first and last, or just once, right after the cleaning?
So just I hear echo. So we did the cleaning first, and then we did the disinfection. Okay.
That once or 2 times, the person wants to know.
One time. One time.
1 time. Okay, well, I think that's a very short and very apt answer. Just now we talked about the differences between countries, but another person wants to know how these field results can be extrapolated to other types of large-scale commercial farms, and what impact do these results have on producers' decision-making?
Yeah, so the same as with high infection pressure farms, the bigger the farms are. By the way, I didn't show you the average outline of these farms because we didn't have the time today. They were typical smaller farms with 4 houses, 6 houses, 2 houses on each farm. Okay, but the more you expand the size of the farm, the more the internal biosecurity becomes tougher to control because you have more possibilities of contaminating the birds from each other. So also there you would expect a more challenge. So the return on investment would always increase if the size of the farms increases. And your second question was.
The second question, yes, of course, there were 2. What impact do these results have on producers' decision-making?
Yeah, again, I think here the mind shift that I have is that you should not see biosecurity and disinfection only as an insurance, but you should see it as an investment. And this is for me, if you leave this as, and I will not talk about the presentation of Anna, of course, but if you want to remember my presentation, just remember this. This trial shows it's not an insurance. It can be an insurance, but on top of that, it is an investment that always brings money. That is for me the final conclusion.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one for you, someone compliments you on your presentation, always good. And he says, is the trial that you mentioned published in peer-reviewed literature, or is it possible to get a link if they send you an email?
This data is so fresh that we are actually we were recently still working on the data. So this trial is still ongoing, even because we have 8 farms enrolled. So the second batch of the results is still being processed. So it's a bit too early to have a peer-reviewed journal. We are looking into that. But we also will publish these results later this year, the update of the results also in the WVPA conference in Borneo in Malaysia.
Great, thank you. So concluding, you heard it here first, people.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you, Maarten. If there's any more questions for you, I might ask them at the end of this webinar. But first, second, last but certainly not least speaker, Anna. And Anna, you will be talking about hygiene programs to elevate production while at the same time ensuring food safety. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for the introduction. And thank you very much, Maarten, for the very good presentation with all the importance of making possible the return of the investment of the hygiene programs. So today, what I would like to present is the results of Avi Prime. Avi Prime is a combination of advanced hygiene programs with the objective of peak the poultry production. As Maarten was saying at the beginning, the idea is that even working with very high standards of quality of hygiene measures, we truly believe that we can improve that situation to finally achieve the optimal performance of the genetics we are working with. If we go for the next slide, please. So Avi Prime is a complete hygiene program developed by CID LINES Company that addresses the barn hygiene, cleaning and disinfection, and also the hygiene, the water hygiene through the cleaning and disinfection of the pipelines during the sanitary stop, and also the drinking water disinfection during the production phase. So for that purpose, we are based on 3 solutions. The first one is C2000. C2000 is a very convenient product and versatile product formulated with stabilized hydrogen peroxide and combined with peracetic acid. This combination will help us to remove biofilm and scale from the pipelines and also to disinfect what is the pipelines. And we can also use that during the production cycle to disinfect the drinking water. Then during the sanitary stop, we focus on this cleaning and disinfection of the pipelines and also the barn hygiene, the poultry barn hygiene. For that, we are using Kenosan. Kenosan is a strong alkaline cleaner with very good or with excellent foam capacity. That this foam capacity will allow the product to sticky, remain on surfaces and penetrate. So finally, the results of the cleaning action are very good. And in the case of the Biosecurity is a highly concentrated broad spectrum disinfectant based on the 5th generation ammonium quaternions together with the glutaraldehyde. Okay, so this combination is highly effective, is very efficient, and can be used on any type of surfaces. Coming back to the question addressed to Martin, in this case, we were just addressing 1-step cleaning and 1-step disinfection. Okay, so in the program of 7-step disinfection that we are recommending, we just did 1 cleaning action, and after the drying period, we apply the disinfectant once. Okay, so if we go for the next slide, please. Today, what I would like to present here is 2 trials that we did under this Avi Prime program and Avi Prime approach. Okay, for that, this first trial is based on the Salmonella results. We are focusing on the Salmonella problem and how to control that. And the second one will be the reinforce the message from Martin with the Avi Prime and in the broiler production, in the broiler production. Yes, sorry. So this first study, we performed this study under commercial situation, okay, in an integration located in the United States, and we wanted to tackle the complete chain and the complete process. So for that, what we did was like following the old pullets during their complete production cycle. So we followed them during the pullet phase, then or the rearing period. Then we followed them during the production phase. We followed the eggs of these breeders to the hatchery, and from the hatchery to the broiler farm, and from there to the slaughterhouses at the end. To the slaughterhouses at the end. So the idea was to follow like the farm to fork concept or farm to food concept, as we want to mention, with the objective of the goal to evaluate the efficacy of the cleaning and the disinfection programs, together with when we combine them with the drinking, with the water hygiene, and how these actions were impacting as well on the final product, that is the broiler carcass at the end. Okay, so we go for the next slide, please. So how we developed the trial protocol? What we did was like we divided 72,000 pullets into 2 control houses and 2 treatment houses. So finally, at the end, we were putting 18,000 pullets, birds per house. And then we send them to the production phase. So for the protocol that we apply in the pullet phase or during the rearing period, for the treatment group, we did the cleaning and the disinfection with Kenosan and Biosecurity. Well, the dosages we can explain later, or you can ask for the dosage for the concrete protocol if you are interested on that. Okay, so we did the cleaning and the disinfection with the Kenosan and the Biosecurity. Then we did the cleaning and the disinfection of the pipelines with C2000, and then we apply a disinfection program during the production with chlorine dioxide in this case, okay? And then the control group was we were just applying the cleaning and the disinfection of the pipelines. And then we sampled them during the complete cycle of the breeding period. We were sampling at 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and 20 weeks of life of the animals. And we were doing sampling of food socks, swabs, subcover swabs, water samples, etc., with the idea to cover all the possible places to find Salmonella. Then for the breeder protocol, in this movement of animals to the second phase of the production, we did the treatment. For the treatment group, we did the cleaning and the disinfection of the surfaces with the Canos and Envirocid, the cleaning and the disinfection of the water drinking systems, the pipelines, and the drinking water disinfection during the production cycle. And for the control group, we didn't do anything. Okay, so it was a negative control. We were sampling at 30 weeks of production, 34, 38, and 42 weeks of productions, exactly the same. Subcovers and different surfaces as well, over slats, nest, etc., surface in general. Then we did the boot socks, sock covers, drug swabs, and water samples as well. And then those eggs produced by those animals were sent to the hatchery, and from the hatchery to transport to bring them to the broiler houses, in which we divide and we follow 56,000 animals that we divided, try to be equally into one control house and one treatment house. Okay, so at the end we were having animals. The control house were the animals coming from the control breeders, and the treatment house were coming from the treatment breeders. So in this case, we need to take into account that this trial was done under the American way of producing the broiler production. Okay, so they reused the litter. So we were not doing the cleaning and the disinfection of on the surfaces, and we were reusing the litter in this case. But we applied the treatment of the drinking water, cleaning and disinfection of the pipelines, and the drinking water disinfection during the production phase. And for the control, we didn't do anything. And then we send those animals, okay, to the slaughterhouse, and we sample we sample some 15 carcasses by group through rinse, and we evaluated the prevalence of Salmonella on those carcasses. Okay, so we go for the next slide. So the results that we found in this trial were very clear, and I think we have a first part of the trial that can be applied worldwide. Okay, and it's the pullets and the breeder productions, the breeder production. Sorry, and here what we saw is that we were able to reduce the counts of Salmonella, the Salmonella presence on surfaces. Okay, when we were sampling on these samples, we were able to not find Salmonella in pullets and in breeder phases. So if we go for the next slide. So here we can see the results in the pullet phase during the breeding period. As you can see, we start sampling at 4, 8, 12, and 20 weeks, and we come from an equal status. Okay, we need to also to think that these animals were vaccinated against the Salmonella strains, and during the phases, we need to remind that the treatment group were introduced into a clean environment, clean and disinfected environment, and were also continued the action through the drinking water disinfection. And on the control group, it was just the action of the cleaning and the disinfection of the pipelines and no more actions. So we can see clearly a reduction of the counts, and finally from week 12 till the end of the breeding period, we don't find positives to Salmonella in those samples. So we were able to reduce the counts of Salmonella in the treatment group from the week 12. This means that at the end, the approach for the Salmonella needs to be an holistic approach. Just one action is not enough. And we can see here that through the proper hygiene measures, the complete hygiene measures that we are applying, we are able to give better results to already existing measures applied, like the vaccination programs and also other nutritional program, other actions like investing through the nutritional actions. Okay, so we can see that this effect in the pullets will be finally impacting as well on the breeders. If we go to the next slide, please. The results in the breeder phase, during the production phase, we can see that we are able to reduce the prevalence up to even over the 95% of prevalence in the Salmonella samples that we are taking. And if we compare to the control, that most of the samples were positive to Salmonella, we can see that in the treatment group, most of the samples are negative, and we can see sometimes in some weeks the positive to Salmonella in the subcover swabs and in the litter. And this means that these are good also ways to sample and to be able to find the Salmonella when we need. Okay, so, but even with that, the prevalence was lower. So this is very important as well to ensure that we are delivering eggs free of Salmonella to the hatchery. Okay, and also, it's important to mention here that the drinking water samples that we were taking, Salmonella can be also entering through the drinking water lines to our farms. So here at week 34, we were able to identify samples positive to Salmonella in the control group and not in the treatment group. Okay, so at the end, the approach that we need to do is very holistic. We need to work with the hygiene, a complete hygiene program, to ensure that we are not introducing animals into a contaminated area, okay, and with presence of Salmonella. And we need also to handle this management with other strategies that will support these actions of controlling the Salmonella. If we go for the next slide. I wanted to separate this from the broiler production because at the end, the way of producing is quite different. And in some areas, like for example in Europe, these results can be taken as maybe not so interesting, but at the end, what is interesting is to mention that even doing things, just doing one action of cleaning and disinfection through the cleaning and disinfection and the drinking water disinfection can be helping. If we apply a complete hygiene program in all these measures, what we are able to do is to properly eliminate Salmonella from surfaces. And this at the end is going to be impacting on the broiler carcasses. So if we go for the next slide, we can see here clearly results in the broiler carcasses at the pre-chilling state. We were able to reduce the prevalence up to 70%. And this reduction was significant, statistically significant. And this is quite important as well, because this makes that these results are important. I would like to mention here that these results are good also for the European and other region markets, because this means that doing these things correct and doing the things properly and applying this complete program, we can reduce the prevalence in the broiler carcass. That is what we need and what we want. And after the pre-chilling state, the way of producing in the United States is different from, for example, from Europe, because we are not dipping the carcasses into this disinfection bath. Okay, so these results are until here. So just to summarize the results of this trial is that complete hygiene programs are crucial are a crucial part of the holistic approach to control the Salmonella and to reduce the risk of Salmonella infection, with the only objective of finally delivering Salmonella-free broiler meat into the market. So if we go for the next slide. Finally here, what I would like is just to reinforce the message of Martin with the trial that we did with them. So thank you very much, Martin, for joining with this journey of trying to evidence the importance of these actions into the biosecurity program and into the production itself, and to help us to show that this is not an insurance, this is an investment. Okay, so if we go for the next slide, at the end, the result of the hygiene program, what we want to do is to effectively eliminate the organic matter and the possible pathogens that we can find in the surfaces. As cleaner is the environment and healthier is the environment we are going to put day-old chicks in a farm, the better the development of these animals is going to be. Okay, so this is clear. So with this Avi Prime program, we were able to effectively eliminate Enterococcus from the surfaces. We can see that the control group is a group that they are already performing hygiene measures. Okay, we can mention that they are good chemistry behind these products, but investing on a prime program like Avi Prime can help to even increase the results or even improve the results of these cleaning and disinfection results. So I would like to mention that the Enterococcus are important to eliminate because they are also related to the biofilm creation. Biofilm, we know they are very negative, they are bad, and we have studies that we partnered with researchers of Iowa University, in which we demonstrate the presence of antimicrobial resistant genes in this biofilm bacteria forming. Okay, so it's quite important to eliminate. And we know that Enterococcus species like Phaeasium and Phaeacalis are part of this biofilm formation. So they are contaminating the drinking water lines. Also, we know that this Enterococcus, in this case, Enterococcus thecorum, is becoming time to time a primary problem in the poultry production in general, because the appearance of locomotor disorders associated to this pathogen as well, of this bacteria in this case. Okay, so it's becoming a real problem as well. And also it's interesting as well to mention that at the hatchery, when it's the Enterococcus species are associated or co-infected with E. coli, in this case Enterococcus phaeacalis combined with E. coli, we can find an increase in the neonatal mortality. So eliminating these microorganisms from the surfaces is going to be related to the efficacy of the cleaning and the disinfection process. We go to the next slide. So at the end, this better efficiency on the cleaning and disinfection, on the hygiene measures, this better efficiency on the hygiene measures is going to be resulting in a reduction of the mortality. Here we are talking about the average, okay? So, and we are able to achieve the 20% of the reduction with the Avi Prime program. And it's nice to mention that even the results or all the data is not finished, because we are still missing data from the 4 farms restant. Okay, the first 4 farms that we were able to analyze, we can see a numerical we can see a statistical reduction in it from the control to the Avi Prime one. So this is quite interesting to see. And from the average, we are able also to reduce this mortality. So it's quite interesting, these results. And also this is supported by a better performance of the animals. So at the end, these animals are gaining weight from the control group. And at the end, we are going to be paid for the kilograms of meat delivered into the slaughterhouse. So effective programs, how to mention this? Sorry. I think that at the end, what we can see here is the Avi Prime is able to reduce mortality, and this reduction of mortality is going to be in a more sustainable production, because we can reduce mortality but also produce in a better way, giving more weight at the end of the cycle. So what we want to do is to be able to achieve the best results of the genetics of the animals with a more sustainable and with a more efficient and healthier way of production. So we go for the next slide. just to finish with my part of the presentation, I would like to mention the benefits that we can deliver to the poultry producers. We can deliver a reduction of the disease. We can work on the disease prevention. Sorry, we can, by reducing the presence of pathogens or special microorganisms on the surfaces, we will be able to reduce. We will be able to promote disease prevention. We are going to be able to reduce mortality, and we have seen in this data that we can reduce up to 20% of the mortality. We can be able to improve performance. A healthier environment will promote a healthier animal, and a healthier animal will be able to develop the optimal performance and the optimal results of their own development. And all this at the end must be supported by this food safety, because we are doing all this to deliver safety meat into the market. And through this program, we can ensure that we can help in the control of the Salmonella risk presence and infection, okay, through eliminating in the pullet phases, through eliminating the presence of Salmonella in the pullet phases and also in the breeder phase. And all this finally is done to finally deliver carcasses free of Salmonella. And we can be able to reduce the prevalence of the Salmonella up to 67% in the broiler carcasses at the pre-chilling stage. So this is for my part. I hope to be in time. Thank you very much for your time here today. I hope you enjoyed it and you like it.
Thank you, Anna, for your excellent presentation and for telling us about the Avi Prime program. I love this final slide of your presentation, by the way. The chickens look very, very happy. There are also some questions for you coming in. So time-wise, I will ask you one question, which was also on my mind. You told us a lot about the Avi Prime program, but what sets it apart from other similar programs?
Which are the differences from other similar programs, you mean?
Distinguishes your program from other ones that might also be out there?
So in our case, what we do is to focus on the chemistry. We are developing a special chemistry for the needs of the animal production, but also we are focused on our protocols and training the people and teaching the people how to use them and apply them in a proper way in the field. So I think at the end is the combination of these both approaches who is making the impact in the field of applying a high quality chemistry, but also applying it correctly in the field through our recommendations and our knowledge.
Okay, thank you for answering this one. There were more questions coming in during your presentation, but you actually answered these questions yourself, so it was very comprehensive. Thank you for that. For now, I think this brings us to the end of our webinar. Before I close off, I would like to remind you that if you want to rewatch this webinar or tell your friends, family and colleagues about it, you can do so on our website, poultryworld.net. And on this website, of course, we also keep you in the loop of the latest news and backgrounds in poultry land. Also, when I finish talking, there will be a short survey appearing on your screen. We need your data to make our webinars even better. And of course, we want to know how you evaluate this webinar. So please take your time to fill out some answers, because we will see the answers coming in after we close off. And that leaves me with thanking you, the audience, for taking time out of your calendar to join us today. And of course, to our two excellent speakers today, Maarten and Anna, thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I hope to see you back again for another poultry webinar. And that leaves me with thanking everyone again and wishing you a very pleasant remainder of your day. Goodbye.